Okay, so in this set of notes, we're going to be talking about this some in class because it's an important part of your SAS training, but we're going to go over it online as well. We're going to be talking about really important underlying concepts you need to understand about SAS syntax, as well as how to correct basic level syntactical errors. So we're going to be able to identify, just like we did before, that there are data steps and proc steps within any SAS program. It's just a sequence of steps, and those steps may be data steps or they could be proc steps. And a step is composed of a sequence of class statements. Notice that there's a certain type of structure with each of these. For example, there is an identifying keyword. So for example, data is an identifying keyword. And at the end of that phrase beginning with an identifying keyword, there's a semicolon to end it. Likewise, length is an identifying keyword. Well, that phrase or statement ends with a semicolon. And you can see that is true for every statement made below here. So take a look at this. We'll do this in class too and practice with our voting cards. But take a look at this and think, how many statements are in the data step? Stop the video if you need some time to think. Go ahead and make your prediction. And we do see 5 here. In class, we might spend some time talking about this with each other, but you can see here that there are 5 keywords, and they all correspondingly end with a semicolon. Okay, so we need to think about some rules and style issues. Using conventional formatting, notice that each data step or proc step begins where the beginning phrase or statement and ending statement are flush left, and then everything in between is indented. That's just good style. It keeps things organized. You'll see on the next slide how when we don't use this conventional formatting, things get a little harder to read. By the way, normally this length statement would all be on 1 line. It just had to move onto 2 lines due to space. Here's unconventional formatting. So you should probably see that this is harder to read. It will still compile, it will still run, just as the conventionally formatted code would, but it's just harder to error check and understand what you've done. Notice that you can have 1 or more blank spaces between words, and that makes no difference on how it compiles as SAS code. However, again, just for readability, we prefer to have 1 between words in a statement. They can also begin and end in any column. There's no rule that you have to stay within any column to start a new phrase. For example, here, run can be at the end of the previous programming statement. I sometimes do that. That's one style rule I do break from time to time, but it doesn't change the compilation. A single statement can span many lines, and sometimes they need to. But multiple statements can also be on the same line. Okay, so making comments. 2 ways to do comments. If it's a big, long phrase, I use this top style. If it's just a couple of words or a sentence, I might use the bottom style. You can see here, when I was a graduate student, we used to have contests to see how fancy and pretty we could make our header at the start of our SAS file, but you will not get bonus points for that in this class. Just fun to do if you like it. Okay, that you can use to create a block. Notice this is using just the star and semicolon, but we could also use that. I typically like to use this format for making a big block. I also like these for blocking out whole portions of code. So go ahead and take some time, retrieve A01 out of chapter 3 of your practice, and run the proc contents and confirm that it doesn't execute. So once you've done that, let's take a look at this multiple choice poll. We'll spend some time on this maybe in the class, but for right now, I just want you to stop the video, read through here, and think about this. Okay, so what's it going to be here? Is the data line statement used when reading the data located in the raw data file, or is it used when reading the data that's located in the direct program? It's only used when we have the data listed out in the program. We're going to explore this in more depth in class. Okay, so in the second section of notes, we're going to talk about errors and learn how to do some basic diagnosis. Some errors are very low level, like you misspelled a keyword. You haven't closed your quotation marks. You forgot your semicolon almost all the time. I have a student who goes, I just can't get my program to run. Guess what the first thing I look for is? Semicolons that are missing. And about half the time, that's what the problem was. Invalid options. That one is easy to make and hard to detect because you don't realize it's invalid unless you look at the log. Okay, so there's some errors here. Pause the video, see if you can detect the errors. Okay, so what's wrong with DAAT? Well, that's not a word. It's supposed to be data. What's wrong here? Missing semicolon, very common. What's wrong here? This one may have been one you couldn't find. We do use the word mean as a keyword to calculate the measure of central tendency, the mean, not the word average. So we're going to do a demonstration. You can do this on your own. And if you have me in class, you'll see it in class. Complete your exercises at the end of this and do your concept check as well.